Hello. So we move on to the second session of grammar pitfalls to look out for. Now in this session, the previous session we had a sort of a brief intro about what grammar was, why we need grammar, the way questions are formed, the problems when we try to form questions, etc. Now in this session we look at a couple of functional usage or expressions that we use when we are introducing someone, and also a bit on verbs, the types of verbs, where we go wrong, etc. So like a common problem, a common doubt that is often raised to us as teachers is, ma'am, how do we introduce myself, or how do we do introduction of another person? It's very simple. You just say your name. That's enough actually in an informal context. But in a formal context, you may have to say, good morning, I am so and so. Good morning, this is so and so. Or hello, meet my friend. That is how we normally go about introducing oneself or introducing another person. Now, for example, I've given the slide. Praveen says, hi Sunil, this is Ramu, my friend. So both the names are mentioned. So Ramu knows that this is Sunil, and Sunil knows that this is Ramu. So that is one way of introducing another person. Like you are introducing two people who don't know each other, but you know them in common. So that is one way of saying, Asha, this is Devika, or Devika, this is Lal. Okay, so that is one way of going about introducing people. Or you can say, Krishna, meet my sister Nilima. So in one go, it's all clear. Who is Nilima? Who is Krishna? Krishna, my friend Krishna. This is Nilima, my sister. So that is another way of introducing a person. And then you can say, Radha, have you ever met Sunita? So that's again another way of introducing a person. Instead of saying, Radha, meet Sunita, you can say, have you ever met Sunita? This is Sunita, my friend I often talk about. And then Kalyan says, hello Rajesh, meet my colleague Kishore. So everything in one go. Meet my friend or meet my sister, and then give the name. That's one way of introducing another person. And then you can also explain that he's a software engineer, etc., etc. And very politely, in an extremely formal context, you can say, hi Shravani, would you like to meet my brother Suresh? Okay, Suresh. So these are different ways of introducing another person. Okay. Now when it comes to introducing yourself, you can always say, my name is so and so. Okay, my name is Alexander. Or you can say, I'm Alexander Pierce. Or you can say, nice to meet you. When somebody introduces themselves, okay, hello, I'm Suresh. Okay, nice to meet you, I'm Satish. Okay, and then pleased to meet you, I'm Radish. Okay, so these are different ways. I've given those in the slides. These are different ways of introducing yourself, and about introducing others also. You mention the names of both the people. That's how you introduce two people to each other who they don't know. Okay, so I'd like to introduce you to Betty, or Sita, I'd like you to introduce you to Radha. So both the names are mentioned. Things are pretty clear. And the responses, that is another problem. When somebody introduces a person to you, or when somebody introduces themselves to you, how do you actually respond? Do we say, yes, very nice name? Is that how we say it, or do we have to say something else? Yes, some of the set responses in functional English is, one is nice to meet you. It's a very common, obvious response. Or then you can say, pleased to meet you, happy to meet you, or simply, how do you do? All these are accepted responses when somebody introduces oneself or another person to you. Now let's look at some of the grammar mistakes. Okay, I've put in a slide which talks about common grammar mistakes. One is, my car beautiful. So very often people miss out a connecting verb, a linking verb sort of thing, and they say, my car beautiful. So we need a be there, okay, an auxiliary verb be there, my car is beautiful. And sometimes we say, yeah, I'm going there at Sunday. No, not really. When you are talking about time, place, etc., you have to use a different preposition. So this is on Sunday or on Monday. And I play chess good. Oh, I play chess good. No, the chess is good, or the burger is good, but you don't eat the burger good. You eat the burger well, okay? Or you play the chess well, not good, but well. And last week I cried. It's in the past tense, so we have to say, last week I cried. And then she liked cheese. That's a common problem. You know, where do we put S? Where do we do not put S? It's theoretically it's known as concord, meaning the noun and the verb will have to agree in number. Well, simply put, from looking at the verb, you should know whether the noun is singular or plural. That is why they say the noun and the verb should agree in numbers. For example, if it is one boy, he likes cheese. If it is two boys, then they like cheese. Well, a quick shortcut to remember this is that we need to put S only in one place. If there are two boys, the S has already come in the noun, so we don't have to repeat the S with the verb. So boys like, boy likes. You won't find this anywhere in a grammar book. It's just a shortcut so that it's easier for you to remember. So another thing is what time it is. The problem that we had already discussed, question formation, what time it is. You need to reverse or you need to shuffle the word order. What time is it? Okay. And she is more tall. Well, there are certain words with which we do use tall. With which we use more. But we have a form called taller and tallest, but sometimes we use more beautiful and most beautiful, but not with tall or short. We have the other forms, shorter and shortest, taller and tallest. So these are some of the common problems or errors that we come across when Indian speakers are using English. So since we are talking about verbs, I think we'll do a little bit of theoretical explanation for verbs. Like verbs are classified into different types. The most common classification is dividing them into main verbs and auxiliary verbs. The terms are all self-explanatory. Main verbs meaning they are very independent. They have their own meaning. They don't need anybody else's help to stand on their own. Even if you put them alone, sit, stand, eat, they have a meaning. They don't need a context. Of course, a context will make their meaning clearer, okay, more clear, but even otherwise they have a meaning of their own. Whereas auxiliary, additional or helping verbs, they usually try to help others to complete the meaning, to complete the sense. Like for example, I am Pierce or I am Angelina. So I and Angelina, so you need a connecting stuff there, okay? So that is where the auxiliary verb comes in to give the sense, to make it more complete, to make the sense more complete. So I am. So those are the auxiliary verbs, and the main auxiliary verbs are be, do and have. Okay, so these are the main verbs that we use along with the main verbs, the major, okay, so to say the major helping verbs. There are different forms of be, am, are, is, past tense forms, was and were. Do takes the three forms, do, does, did. Have takes the three forms, have, has, had. The problem there, I hope you're familiar with the examples of main verbs. I've already mentioned eat, sit, drink, okay, things that can stand on their own. You don't need a context or help of another word to make their meaning, their essential meaning clear. So the problem here is that do and have can act as auxiliary and main verbs. Sometimes they come as main verbs. That's where all the confusion happens. Like for example, somebody asks you, do you have a pen? So one is the main verb, the other is the auxiliary. Do and have, they have both come there. So how do you decide which is the main verb, which is the auxiliary verb? So actually the question is, have is not actually an auxiliary there, have is a main verb there, meaning do you possess, do you own a pen? So have you had your breakfast? Again, same problem. A lot of people come and tell me, why do you need two haves there? Have you had your breakfast? Well, the problem is one have is the auxiliary, okay, that is bringing in the tense. That is telling you which time frame that happened. The other is about whether have you eaten. So the easiest way to identify whether they have come as main verb or auxiliary is try to substitute them. Have you had your breakfast? You can substitute had with eat, right? Have you eaten? Have you had your breakfast? Have you eaten your breakfast? So when the substitution happens, that form of have is actually the main verb, and the other have you had, that is the auxiliary verb. So that comes to help the main verb attain a more clear or a clearer sort of sense. It makes the sense complete, okay? So that is the same problem with do also, okay? Did you do this? No, I didn't do this. So how many do and how many dids, okay? Now did you do this? Try substituting do with another main verb. Did you write this? Did you eat this? Did you drink this? So one do, then obviously you cannot substitute the first do. So that has obviously come as the auxiliary verb. The other one has come as the main verb. That's one way of mitigating, of lessening the confusion and making things a bit more effective, clear, okay? Right, now there are also auxiliaries called modal auxiliaries, okay, or modal auxiliaries. Now these are primarily used to indicate future tense or sometimes possibilities and that sort of stuff, so things about future primarily, okay? So the major ones are can, may, will, shall, and their past tense forms: could, would, might, should. Okay, and we also have dare to, used to, need to. All these are counted as modal auxiliaries. So primarily verbs are divided into two. That's one classification. Remember, there is another type of classification also. There are many different types of classifications for the verbs, but this is one type of classification wherein we treat verbs into independent verbs and dependent verbs, sort of. That's not really a term, but still, to make things clearer for you, there are main verbs which have independent meaning, which have their own existence, and they can stand on their own. Even if you just say that word, the meaning is clear. Sit, okay, or eat, or write, quiet, okay. All these are main verbs, and the auxiliary verbs come along with the main verbs to give additional sense or make their sense complete, okay. He will be eating. So two auxiliaries there, will and be, have been brought in so that the meaning of eating will be more complete, more clear to the listener, to the receiver. So I hope that is clear. Now the next slide shows you some of the examples of wrong use of verbs, okay, or the wrong past tense formation. He teached at school for 20 years. We know the past tense of teach is not teached but taught. Similarly, he has builded a new house. The past tense of build is built. The D is substituted with T. That's how you form the past tense of build. And then many more like that. I have cutted my finger. Unfortunately, cut retains its same form, its original form, across tense variations. Cut, cut, cut. We do not have cutted. We may have cutting but not cutted, okay, or cutten for that matter. Like for example, I remember somebody telling me, I thought and I thought. What is the past tense or the perfect form of think? I thought, and then I wrote thunk. Okay, so there is no such formation as thunk. Now that is another, that forms the basis of another classification of verbs. This is where we classify verbs into regular and irregular verbs. Okay, this is primarily based on their past tense formation. So regular verbs form their past tense forms regular way, in the regular way. You add D or ED and you get the past tense form of those words. Usually words that end with k, t, these are the words that take these regular past tense forms. So those are known as regular verbs. Like for example, talk, talked, kill, killed, accept, accepted. So normally words that end with k, t, these are the ones that are regular, okay, not usually. And irregular verbs, they have a sound shift, a sound change and spelling change when it comes to forming their past tense forms. So that is where we have see, the past tense of see is saw. I saw him. Did you see him? I saw him. Okay, so see and saw, choose and chose, become, becomes, became. So there is a change in vowel. Okay, there is a change in sound and there is a change in spelling. The other one is just simple. You just add D or ED and you get the past tense form. That's the regular verb. And irregular verbs, they might sound confusing, but they are pretty easy. So sleep will become slept, sing will become sung, think will become thought. Okay, so those kind of verb transformations happen. Okay, so I thought I'll add one more slide on adverbs. Since we are talking about verbs, we'll talk about a bit about adverbs also, because adverbs are important. They add color to the language. Adjectives actually add color to the language, to the way it makes it more elaborate and more precise when you are using language. But adverbs of course helps in coloring it up a bit. Adverbs, as you know, are words that we use to help a verb. She was writing. Yes. How was she writing? She was writing beautifully perhaps. She was writing slowly perhaps. So how was she doing something? Okay. That is where we bring in adverb. And many a times we tend to repeat adverbs because we do not use intensifiers. So using intensifiers is one way of improving the language, the effectiveness of what you're trying to say. Like for example, I am much happy to see you. This is actually wrong. You have to say I am very happy to see you. So it's not just enough to know intensifiers. Very much and all are intensifiers. They add intensity to the adverb or adjective that you are trying to use. So it's not enough that we know the intensifiers, but we need to know which adverb or which intensifier to use where. Okay, so that is where you can't say I'm much happy to see you. No, I'm very happy to see you. He was very foolish enough to trust her. Well, he was so foolish to trust her, or he was foolish enough to trust her. You can't put in foolish and enough and very and everything together. Okay, so Daniel is yet at home. Now, Daniel is yet to come maybe, but not yet at home. Daniel is still at home. Okay, then it was bitter cold. Bitter is not really an adverb. Usually adverbs are formed by adding y or ly to an adjective. So the song was beautiful, she sang beautifully. Okay, so that is how we normally form adverbs. So it was bitter cold won't really work, it was bitterly cold. And she sang sweetly, she sang sweet is not really correct, but we have to say she sang sweetly. So also saying I'm much tired, like we were saying, much is good, but we don't use much with tired. I'm very tired. Okay, very is a very good intensifier. You should use very often, more often. Okay, so he plays tennis good, like we said earlier, he plays chess good. No, you don't play chess or you don't play tennis good. Something is good, but you do something well. Okay, so adjective, the difference between adjective and adverb. Now I've put the last slide to say a number of ways about saying goodbye. How do you say goodbye? You can say goodbye, or you can just say bye bye, tata, see you, all these stuff are there. So it's a number of expressions that we can use: farewell, cheerio, ciao. Okay, all these stuff are said. Catch you later. So all these will be helpful for you while you're using language in real life. Okay, so it's cheerio for now, catch you later.